This video is brought to you by CoolStuffInc.com, the best online retailer for Magic the Gathering singles and sealed product, and GatheringMagic.com, the #1 source for Magic the Gathering news and content. Now it's time for our latest video with Alan Pennington.
Hey everyone, welcome to today's deck primer. Deck we've got here is a Legacy deck. I'm actually really excited to record some Legacy, seeing as how it is my favorite format and many other people's favorite format, in fact. It's kind of got that perfect mixture of funness and degeneracy, which I hope to give you guys a little taste of today. But as far as the deck that we're playing, it's called Ad Nauseam Tendrils, aka Ant. Gets its name from these two cards here. And Tendrils of Agony is our win condition. On the surface, all we're trying to do is count to 10. But with this deck, it's kind of more about the journey than the destination. Getting to that 10 storm count is much easier said than done, and I'll try to explain some of the basic lines that let us get there. The least complicated one happens to be Ad Nauseam, but Ad Nauseam is actually our plan B and not really our plan A. It's kind of the fail-safe when we don't have some other way to kill them, and that is all you need to do is just get 5 mana to cast Ad Nauseam, and then start flipping over cards. And now, assuming we have a reasonably high life total, something like 15 or above, we should be able to flip over quite a lot of cards, sometimes like 20 or more. And that's because our deck is constructed such that most of our cards are 0 or 1 mana. We've got a few 2s and then only 2 4s. But we lose life for each mana symbol as we flip over cards. And after we flip over 10, 15, 20 cards or so, and we get a bunch of rituals and mana artifacts and a tutor, we just cast all our spells and search up a Tendrils, and it should be storm count 10, and then that's it. Downside to Ad Nauseam is that it's never really a sure thing. You can't always fizzle. Even if you're at 20 life, it is possible to fizzle with this card. So that's kind of the risk that you take when you go this route. Other downside, course, is against decks with like Lightning Bolt or something like that, they can just kill you, which would be kind of embarrassing. So you got to be careful when you cast this card. If you have another way to win, you're gonna want to do that instead, because this is one of the riskiest ways to try to win. The other route is a bit more complicated, and it involves Past in Flames. Now, Past in Flames, a card that came out, I don't know, 2 or 3 years ago or so, gave Storm decks a big boost. If you play Modern, you'll probably see that. The Modern Storm deck plays, I believe, 3 copies of this card, and it's kind of a cornerstone for that deck. And although we only play 1 copy, it's a cornerstone here too. We just only have to play 1 because we got like 7 different ways to search it, which is nice. And pretty much all of the Past in Flames wins also involve Infernal Tutor, so I'm just going to explain that card real quick, because Infernal Tutor is probably the single most important card in this deck. And if you're Hellbent, meaning you have 0 cards in hand, it's a Demonic Tutor, which is great. Demonic Tutor's banned in Legacy for a reason, so being able to play 4 is pretty awesome. If you're not Hellbent, then it just searches for a card that you already have in your hand, and the card that goes with Infernal Tutor most of the time is Lion's Eye Diamond. It's basically a Black Lotus where we have to discard our hand. So this deck is essentially playing 4 Demonic Tutors and 4 Black Lotus, which, as you may guess, is quite powerful. We just kind of have to use them correctly to get the most value out of them. Infernal Tutor, you don't always have to combine it with Lion's Eye Diamond. Sometimes you can just empty your hand naturally just by casting all of the things in your hand. Or it may even be the case that, you're playing against an opponent with like Thoughtseizes and Hymn to Torarchs and things like that. So, don't always need Lion's Eye Diamond to go with this, but they kind of are buddies. But as far as the Past in Flames kill goes, we're basically going to like cast a bunch of rituals. We're going to go like Dark Ritual, Cabal Ritual, maybe like throw in a Gitaxian Probe in there. Then we're going to like cast Infernal Tutor, search for Past in Flames, cast Past in Flames, then flashback all of our rituals, flashback Infernal Tutor, then search Tendrils, which should be a lethal storm count, and then kill them. And late in the game, or if you have enough cards in your grave for whatever reason, Past Inflames can lead to some ridiculous storm counts, like Storm 15, Storm 20. You can like kill opponents that have, you know, gained life with Batter Skull several times, which is nice. Storm 10 isn't like our limit, so to speak. We can get like the really high storm counts, but they all involve Past Inflames. So Past Inflames is a very important card, along with Infernal Tutor. There's other kills as well that involve Infernal Tutor. Say you like build up, you know, tons of mana off like your rituals and Lion's Eye Diamonds and stuff, and maybe you have like, sometimes you can even get like 13 mana floating or something. And then once you do that, you can use Infernal Tutor and search for another Infernal Tutor and add to your storm count that way. You can basically convert 2 mana into an extra storm, which is very useful. You can even go like all the way down the chain, Infernal Tutor for Infernal Tutor for Infernal Tutor for Burning Wish for our sideboard Tendrils, which is already going to be like, you know, 12 damage, and that's if you haven't played any other spells that turn. Most likely, if you have that much mana, you've probably played like, you know, 3 rituals and a Lion's Eye Diamond or something. So that's like more than enough to kill them. So that's another way to kill people. Sometimes if you even like open with Tendrils, you don't have to do anything that complicated. You can just like cast a bunch of rituals, like cast a Brainstorm, and then just like, you know, go off and cast Tendrils like the natural way. But there's a lot of different routes to get there. This is a very complicated deck to play. I'm probably going to mess up at least once in the actual matches. Most people consider this among the hardest decks to play in Legacy. So that's kind of how all the combos work. You probably got a sense for how it works. It's a pretty fast deck. The average kill is probably turn 3.5 or so, but you can get kills as early as turn 1 with the right hand. As far as the individual choices, we've kind of explained the general strategy, but I'll start with the mana base. We're playing 15 lands. We don't need to play that many because you've also got like these artifact mana sources and rituals and things like that. But this is a blue-black base deck, splashing red and green. So of course we have 4 Polluted Deltas to search every single land in our deck. We have 4 Scalding Tarns, which search every single land in our deck as well, save for the basic swamp. Then, as far as our duels go, we've got 5 duels. We've got 2 underground seats. The only duel we're playing more than one of, because, as I said, we are blue-black based. And then we've got 3 other ones. We just have a lone tropical island for our green splash. And then we've got a Badlands and a Volcanic Island for the red splash. The red splash is a little more important than the green, seeing as how we're not actually playing any green cards in our main deck. And then to round out the lands, we have a 1 of Island and a 1 of Swamp. Many combo decks will go with a few basics just because getting Wastelanded is a very big setback. You know, being on the draw and having your opponent go like, you know, turn 1 Delver Secrets, turn 2 Wasteland is a very, very big deal. So being able to, you know, fetch up basic Island and go, you know, turn 1 Ponder, and then fetch up basic Swamp and go like turn 2 Duress or something, that is often how we want to start our games off against the decks with ways to kill our lands, namely Wasteland. Then here, these aren't lands, but they are 0 mana sources. We've got 4 Lotus Petal and 4 Lion's Eye Diamond, and lots of combo decks in Legacy play these because they're very powerful. They add to our storm count without costing us any mana. They make more mana to let us build up a further storm count. Lion's Eye Diamond, of course, combines with Infernal Tutor, so they're very powerful as well. Then, as far as our other rituals go, we got 4 Dark Ritual and 4 Cabal Ritual. Cabal Ritual, ideally we want to cast it once we get to Threshold. It's very, very powerful if it has Thresholds. And it's not too difficult to do. We're playing like fetches, which help. We're playing Gitaxian Probes and, you know, just other cantrips, which help. So we can get Threshold as early as like turn 3 or turn 4 or so. So that's pretty nice. We don't always have to have Threshold, and that's one reason why Deathrite Shaman is actually a very powerful card versus our deck, is because it stops us from gaining that Threshold. So that's something to keep in mind. So that covers all the rituals. We've got the typical 12 cantrips here. We have 4 probes, 4 ponders, and 4 brainstorms. And some builds of this deck will even play like preordains. They might be playing as many as like 3 or 4, but in this particular build, we're opting with Burning Wish instead of those Preordains, which I'll explain in a little while. We've also got discard spells, 4 Duress and 3 Cabal Therapy. Normally, you might expect Thoughtseize in this slot, but our life total is kind of important. For each Thoughtseize that we cast, it would make our Ad Nauseam worse, so that's why we're not going with Thoughtseize, which would kind of be the default best discard spell in the format. Instead, we're going with 4 Duress as our main option. We're mainly worried about things like Force of Will, Stifle, Spell Pierce, things like that. We're not really too concerned with creatures, although there's some creatures that bother us. And then Cabal Therapy's kind of our next best option. Combines with Gitaxian Probe for some very strong plays. Also has synergy with Duress. You can turn 1 Duress them, see their hand, then turn 2 Cabal Therapy them. So that covers all the discard. Kind of already went over these 3 here. Passion Flames, Tendrils, and Ad Nauseam. Those are our win conditions. Also pretty much went over Infernal Tutor. Searches for anything ideally. The only thing we haven't gone over is Burning Wish, which is something that Ad Nauseam Tendrils lists will disagree on. I would say less than half of them are playing Burning Wish, but it is a common option. It's not something that you'll never see. And here I decided to go with 3 copies of Burning Wish for a few reasons. You'll see here we have our Wish sideboard. So generally I leave the sideboard towards the end, but these 7 cards in our sideboard are actually kind of part of our main deck. So the reason why I went with Burning Wish is there are a few cards in our sideboard that are very helpful in certain situations. One, for example, is Massacre. If we weren't playing Burning Wish, it would be very, very difficult to beat something like Athalia, or even a Meddling Mage naming Tendrils. We would just not have any way to win. Or even like a Gaddock Teague or something. We would have no way to win. So to make it so we don't just concede to those cards game 1, being able to Burning Wish for Massacre is very useful, since pretty much all of those cards that stop us are white, so more than likely they'll have a Plains in play, which will allow us to cast Massacre and kill their board. Some Wish sideboards will also have the Pyroclasm or a Drown in Sorrow, but I decided to not go with those. I figured the 1 Massacre would probably be enough. Feel free to, of course, change the Wish sideboard if there's something here you think would be better off as something else. Because it is kind of hard to fit in all the options here, and there are lots of different choices you can experiment with. But the primary reason is Massacre. The secondary reason is these 3 right here: Empty the Warrens, Past in Flames, and Tendrils. Tendrils and Past in Flames we do have in our main deck, but you know, sometimes things can happen. Say, for example, our opponent... Say we open with Tendrils, and our opponent Thoughtseizes our Tendrils, then use Deathrite to get rid of it. Now, normally we would just have no way to win, but with Burning Wish, we can just Burning Wish for our Tendrils in our board and still go off, which is nice. You know, same thing with Past in Flames. We can Burning Wish for that, and you know, potentially go off somehow. And then Empty the Wardens is there as well, because sometimes you'll have these opening hands where you'll get to like 8 storm count or something. You're like, I know I can storm 8, but like I can't storm 10 for like the lethal Tendrils or whatever. And turns out with Empty the Warrens, you can win with a much smaller storm count. You can sometimes even win with just storm 5, just by making 10 tokens, attacking them for 10 the next turn, then attacking them for 10 again. So the nice thing about having the ability to Burning Wish for Empty the Warrens is it allows us to win with much smaller storm counts, and kind of just come out of nowhere, win a way they weren't expecting. You can sometimes even use Empty the Warrens to flashback Cabal Therapy. I actually had a game against Dredge recently where I went for the Empty the Warrens line, and then flashback Cabal Therapy just to remove their Bridge from Belows, which ended up being important. As far as our other options here, one you might notice is the one of Reverent Silence, which is why we have to play a Tropical Island in our main deck. And sometimes people have things like Leyline of Sanctities that they're boarding in, and while Empty the Warrens can get past a Leyline of Sanctity, of course, doesn't stop you from killing them. Sometimes you'd rather just search for Reverent Silence and just kill the ley lines and go off with a large Tendrils. Also good against like counterbalance decks. If you know you're up against a counterbalance deck, you can wish for this on turn 2, and those decks will often have a hard time countering converted mana cost 4 spells because they only have like a few Jaces and a Supreme Verdict to flip over to their counterbalance. So nice way to be able to beat that deck in game 1. Then we have a few other cards here for our wish board. We have Grim Tutor. Just because we can wish for it and then search for whatever we want in our deck, which is pretty nice. Then we also have an Infernal Contract, just in case sometimes you'll get into attrition battles with various decks, and just wishing for a draw 4 is pretty sweet. Not something you'll do often, but the few times you do it, you'll be glad that you had it there. But yeah, there are a lot of other options for wish board. Some people play like diminishing returns or ill-gotten gains for like various other win conditions. I've decided not to go with that. Sometimes people even have like a death mark in here. There's lots of different things you can experiment with. So if you want to change the wish sideboard, I would definitely say go for it. So that like covers the main deck. I guess I figured might as well just finish with the rest of the sideboard. We have 3 Dark Confidants. Those come in for, again, like decks where we want to attrition them out. For example, the Mirror. Dark Confidant is definitely the best card in the Mirror because you just sit there and rip each other's hands apart with discard, and then your Dark Confidant can let you recoup those cards in your hands. And the Mirror has actually become a bit more popular in Magic Online due to the reprinting of Lion's Eye Diamond, which is actually why I'm able to play this deck as well. This used to be like an $150 card on Magic Online. Now it's only a $50 card. So mirrors have actually gotten quite a bit more popular. So we have a Dark Confidant for that. It can even come in against like decks like Sneak and Show, just decks that like don't play anything that would kill it and might be a little on the slow side. So you can like board this in against like Sneak and Show, I guess. If you want, like you can even board in against like something like Death and Taxes, because their Swords to Plowshares will come out, but like I really wouldn't recommend it. It's just, you know, sort of a card to bring in when you don't expect them to have any removal for it and you think the game will go long. That's obviously important. If you think the game's going to be over on turn 3, Dark Confidant's not very good. If you think the game's going to be over on turn 10, Dark Confidant's very good. So that's kind of the deciding factor as far as whether to board that in. Another important card is Abrupt Decay. Counterbalance is generally a poor matchup, even though game 1 you have the ability to wish for Reverent Silence. So you're going to want to bring in these 3 Abrupt Decays to kill Counterbalance, and it's pretty much just exclusively there for that reason. I guess there might be a couple of other times you might want to bring in Abrupt Decays, but they're pretty much just there for Counterbalance and Counterbalance alone. Then last but not least, we have Carpet of Flowers. Can come in against a number of different blue decks, but it's mainly there against like Rug Delver and other Delver decks as well, but mostly the Rug variant. I guess also the American variant, good against them too. You mainly want it against them because they're trying to attack your mana base, and they also have cards like Daze and Spell Pierce. So being able to net that extra mana is very important because it lets you sort of keep your head above water while they're attacking your lands, and it also allows you to pay for Dazes and Spell Pierce. So even if they only have like 2 islands in play, it's great value because it's, you know, 1 card that's adding 2 mana each turn, which is awesome. So that's pretty much what that's there for. So I believe that covers pretty much all the choices, and I've already covered a few of the matchups. As far as matchups go, like they're not really any matchups that are really good or really bad. This is kind of a deck that is close to 50-50 against everything. As far as the good matchups, those would just be decks without Force Will, because you can kill them like, you know, as early as turn 2 without having to worry about what they might have in hand, which is of course quite convenient. So things like Elves, Affinity, Goblins, those can often be quick wins for you because you just storm them out real early. So yeah, decks with no interaction, of course, they're good matchups for you, as you would expect for any combo deck. Bad matchups, I would say Reanimator is a very hard one. I would say Reanimator is probably the worst because They can get a Gristlebrand into play as early as turn 1. They're often playing Thoughtseizes, Dazes, and Force Wills, so they can just put a Gristlebrand into play and draw a bunch of counter magic off of it, and then you'll have a lot of trouble winning. So Reanimator probably would be our hardest matchup. Sneak and Show can also be a hard matchup for kind of the same reason as Reanimator. They can, put a Gristlebrand or an Emrakul into play really quickly, and they've got like a lot of counter magic to back it up. So those can be kind of tricky. Delver variants are generally like pretty close, around 50-50. A lot of the decks like that, like the Delver variants, it kind of just comes down to like who maneuvers a little better, and just making sure that you have the discard to get rid of their key counters like Force Will, and then figuring out how to play around like the Dazes and the Spell Pierces. So those matchups can often be very tricky to figure out how to win. But this often is a deck where you'll know, like, okay, I know there's a way I can win, I just need to find it. So that's why like kind of a lot of the matchups are 50-50, is because it just depends on how well they know your deck and how well you know theirs. But in general, that's kind of a defining factor of Legacy, is it's often the case that the person who has played the matchup more will have the advantage, because they'll just have more experience and know what to play around when. So that's just something to keep in mind. As you can see, there are a lot of factors that define a matchup in Legacy, which is why I'm not really going into too many specifics. But hopefully you'll get to see how some of the matchups play out in the rounds, and then decide for yourself whether you think something is a good or bad matchup for this deck. So that being said, I hope you enjoyed this profile. It was a little long, but this is Alan Pennington with Gathering Magic, signing off. I hope you enjoy the rounds.